As you can see, we are preparing the go-home episode of Monday Night Raw before the Night of Legends coming this weekend, where the card is shaping up to very nicely. Vader and Candido will happen this Saturday night. Flair, Bret Hart, Steamboat, Owen Hart, Iron Man match. Steamboat is putting his career on the line. Rob Van Dam, Papa Shango, Honky Tonk Man and Brian Lee in a rematch for the Intercontinental title. And El Gigante will face Yokozuna as El Elegante. Debuted last week in the WWF as a contender to Yokozuna, who has been undefeated since joining the WWF. You know what? I need a local talent for this. Just because Lex Luger is one of those guys. Lex Luger just got released. He had one of those little incidents that happen sometimes in the game. I forget what they're called. Like bad things that happen that cause him to be untouchable for an extended period of time. Not that I would have jumped at the opportunity to try and sign Lex Luger, because, well, no offense to Lex Luger, but I don't think he's that good. I don't think he's all that good. I think he's a draw. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's that good. Sonny and Vader have an in-ring segment, and Candido, shown on screen, pissed off. Vader is offered by Sonny to have her manage him on Saturday instead of Candido. After Chris put her in harm's way. This is letting Sonny speak for herself and giving her the opportunity to try and get her feet under her as a, as a person, as a character and a worker, just giving her some time on the microphone. Bret Hart. Gene interviews Bret at WrestleMania. The toughest test of my career. And it showed. But now I know what I'm getting myself into. Because before that, if you remember, Bret had been the champion since SummerSlam and then dropped the belt to Ric Flair at WrestleMania. But now he's getting his rematch at In Your House Night of Legends against the Nature Boy for the world title. He's getting the rematch that he wanted back at Saturday Night's Main Event, but as I mentioned in a previous video, Owen brought up the accurate point. Why should Bret get the title shot if Bret lost at Mania and he won? So Owen ended up getting the title shot instead. Now you got a filler match with Doug Basham and Mikey Whipwreck. Let's see if we account for all of them. Candido's got his. They're not this feud. Oh, these guys. You got JJ Dillon showing up to announce JJ Dillon finally, if I spelled it right, finally appears to silence Heenan, letting him know, announcing that the brackets for KOTR will be announced next week. Because because right after Night of Legends in your house, it's King of the Ring time. It's King of the Ring season, and it's time to move into the King of the Ring tournament. And then we move to the first ever WWF Unforgiven pay-per-view, and then it's SummerSlam season. So it's one big step after another. Right, like with it's full steam ahead. That's what I'm trying to say. It's full steam ahead from here on out with you know what? Dirty White Boy, let's go. It's a test for the Dirty White Boy. What I was trying to say was, it's full steam ahead right after Night of Legends. It's not like it's a B-level pay-per-view. Right after Night of Legends, it's an A-level pay-per-view, or at least it's at least moving up from the level that Night of Legends and Saturday Night's Main Event are, because in my opinion, as I mentioned, Saturday Night's Main Event was not a pay-per-view. It was a free television special, not a pay-per-view. But either way, you know, I love the King of the Ring tournament, and I will actually announce, I will be putting together the brackets right after Night of Legends to I will be putting together the brackets and actually putting them together on on the website I've been using. And I may do a video about it showing off the brackets. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But the brackets will tie into long-term plans that I have, and won't just be randomized brackets that have no meaning. They will have a long-term plan and promote a long-term direction for everybody in the tournament. Because that will be why everybody that is in the tournament is in the tournament. Either way, first episode, the first match on this week's episode, Tama beats Shane Sewell. As you might have seen later, this is not it for Tama tonight. But either way, we move to the Rock and Roll Express, who talk about Gary Hart and their match against Diesel and Ahmed Johnson on Saturday for the tag team titles. Jamie Dundee is the since Saturday Night's Main Event, as a way to, I guess you could say, continue with the new blood or the fresh faces. I've been bringing in some new talent on a weekly basis. The first week in May was Scott Taylor. The second week in May was G.I. Bro, aka Booker T. Last week was C.W. Anderson. And this week is J.C. Ice. The main difference between J.C. Ice, C.W. Anderson, G.I. Bro, and Scott Taylor is J.C. is just a local talent. He doesn't actually work for me. C.W., Booker T, and Scott Taylor do as jobbers, who I see a future in, and that's why I signed them to a contract. Either way, it gives Bob Orton a much-needed victory. Nothing much else to it. Brian Lee continues the hype for his match against Honky Tonk Man at Night of Legends this weekend, as I mentioned earlier. Now here's where things take an interesting turn. Yokozuna again continues his undefeated streak, defeating Mark Mero, who wanted a rematch against Yokozuna after a dusty finish the last time, and a dusty finish again. But either way, Mark Mero gets intentionally counted out when this happens. When Tama takes a stroll down to the ring, picks up Mero's manager Sable, puts her on his shoulder, and walks away. Mero notices them walking away as they head up the stage or head up the ramp, and Mero makes a beeline for him, trying to catch up and save Sable. The only question now is, why did Tama abduct Sable? You see the small little nuggets that I'm dropping, and the small little hints that stuff is changing, that the programming is changing, and that things are changing. It's not happening overnight. It's slowly but surely being integrated into the product, little by little, especially if it makes sense for somebody's character to do something and it keeps them on television. And that's why I did it with Tama and Humperdinck and Yokozuna, that trio, because it keeps them on television and keeps them doing something. And it helps because now, if I want to integrate Yoko and El Elegante into the Mero Douglas feud, then I can. That's it. Now we move on to Shawn Michaels, who finally expresses comments on The Undertaker, who has been playing mind games with Shawn Michaels the last couple of weeks. And Gene asks if this changes Michaels' goal to challenge for the world title, and HBK says no. He thinks that Taker's just playing mind games, and Taker can play all the mind games he wants, but Michaels has his eyes set on the winner of Bret Hart versus Ric Flair and the WWF Championship. He then goes on to beat Strongman Mastino pretty handily in a solid match. Now we go to something I want you to picture. Let's say we come back from a commercial break, Ricky Steamboat's music plays, and Ricky Steamboat comes out to the ring by himself, no subtleties, no mannerisms, just Ricky Steamboat. And he just talks about his career. He talks about how he's done it all, how he's been in the wrestling business since how he's been all over the world and seen it all and done it all and main evented and done more than he ever could have imagined. And that he will never lose his love for wrestling, but his time might be up. He is doubting himself just a little bit against Owen Hart, because Owen was able to take everything Ricky had at WrestleMania and give it right back to him and come out the victor. So Ricky is doubting himself against the new generation and if he can keep up with the new stars of today. Mainly, that segment was designed to give people sympathy for Ricky Steamboat even more than they already do, and just give a little bit more of a rub to Owen Hart. Terry Funk versus Dave Finlay, a solid match that I wasn't sure how well it was going to do. I probably should have expected it to do this good, but I wasn't sure how well it was going to do, because it was just a thrown together thing that I wanted to get both, like I said earlier with Tama and Yokozuna. And that trio, I did something that was just designed to keep them on TV and get them here for a prolonged period of time. And now, Finlay's got a gimmick. At the beginning of the month, Finlay fought Shawn Michaels. Match ended in disqualification. Finlay blames. He said, I would have beaten Shawn Michaels if not for The Undertaker. Just like I would have beaten Terry Funk if not for the disqualification. Yes, this will lead to a match between Terry Funk and Finlay on Saturday at In Your House Night of Legends. And yes, the match will be no holds barred. Just as a way to make sure that both Finlay and Terry Funk, who both deserve to be on the pay-per-view, are on the pay-per-view. Vader versus Bruce Taylor in a short squash match. And then we move to the important one, where Sonny, who was on commentary for the previous match, asks Vader if he wants her to manage him Saturday night for the cage match against Candido. And then we see in the locker rooms, Candido's watching on the monitor, and he's pissed. He's pissed because Sonny is taking this fight, this one little action that Candido had done, which I believe it was last week on Raw. Candido fought, worked the match, ran his mouth before the match, and drew Vader out. And instead of staying in the ring and facing him, he bolted from the ring, leaving Vader in the ring with Sonny alone. And Sonny took exception to being left alone with Vader in the ring, and hasn't forgiven Candido just yet. Bret Hart talking about how WrestleMania was a learning experience. How the last 2 years of WrestleMania have been highlights of his career, but in two very different ways, because at WrestleMania 11, he fought Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair in the main event for the WWF title and won. And won his first WWF title on the biggest stage of them all. And then the following year, he was world champion, defending it against Ric Flair in the main event on the biggest stage of them all. One match he won, one match he lost. His next test comes on Saturday night when he gets his rematch against Ric Flair for the world title. Mikey Whipwreck beats Doug Basham in just what it was, just a match to fill up some time, to give them two guys who deserve, if I got time, I'll give them time. I have 2 hours, I'd rather a match that could help me find somebody who deserves a spot, rather than a match just with, Brian Lee against some local guy. You know what I mean? And now we move to Bobby Heenan and his segment with the Blondes and J.J. Dillon. As I mentioned earlier, J.J. Dillon will announce the brackets for the King of the Ring tournament the night after, or the first Monday in June, basically next week on Raw, because right after Night of Legends, we're going right into the King of the Ring tournament. And yes, the Hollywood Blondes will be a part of the King of the Ring tournament. Because as I mentioned, every single person in that tournament will have a long-term story coming out of that tournament. Or that tournament will, in some way, shape, or form, help them. Because I take tournaments very seriously and don't come out of it without a plan. Because much like Battle Royals can help you design more than just a Battle Royal isn't supposed to just be there for the night. It's supposed to have, it can have a long-term purpose. Like various feuds can either continue through a Battle Royal or be formed in a Battle Royal. Just like various feuds can either continue in a tournament or be born in a tournament. And that's why I still do King of the Ring, and why I take King of the Ring very seriously, and will take it very seriously this year, just like every other year, with one major storyline starting inside the King of the Ring tournament. I can give you my word on that. Bret Hart puts in a solid, gets a solid match, or good match out of Dirty White Boy. Exactly what I wanted. As Bret Hart proves. Basically, I wanted Bret Hart to do what he did in WWE at this point in real life. which actually I think it was like more like 1992 or 1993, after Raw, where he was having matches with Hakushi and Sean Waltman and, just random guys on Raw, and he was stealing the show every single night that he was in the ring. And that's what I wanted tonight with him and Dirty White Boy, because last week it was Ric Flair. So this week it's Bret Hart. A solid episode of Raw, a great go-home show, and in no uncertain terms, I might have sold out. I'd be honestly surprised if I didn't. You know what? Let's find out if we did. Let's find out if we did. But as we wrap up this week's episode, I just wanted to make note that in the coming weeks you will be seeing some video retrospectives for Hall of Fame inductees into the Wrestling Express Hall of Fame, and in every video retrospective you will be able to find the full Hall of Fame section that is listed on WrestlingExpress.net. If you are curious who I've inducted into the Hall of Fame since 2017. And if you are also curious, this is what Nitro put together. Yes, they're a little bit better, but there are some people who I made stars that they took from me. But either way, I'm not going to be too petty. Apparently, no, it wasn't a sellout, but I'm assuming it was very close. It was very close to one. Because it's hard for me to believe that I drew 10,000 people and did not sell out. Well, I guess it's okay, because, Shawn Michaels doesn't like Bradshaw, but Bradshaw's gone. Yes, that night was the last night of Shane Stool and Bradshaw in the WWE for the foreseeable future. Not that I have anything against them, it's just the fact that I ran out of things for them to do. Ron Wright will be leaving after tomorrow, and the next time you see me, we'll be right in the mix. We'll be in the mix or starting the King of the Ring tournament. So with that being said, let me know down in the comment section below if you want to take a guess on who will be getting a major storyline out of the King of the Ring tournament. And let me also know if you believe tournaments should carry more importance than they do in, real WWE. Because, I think New Japan does it right with how they do the G1 Climax and other tournaments. But that's just my opinion. I want to hear yours. You can also express your opinion by leaving a like and subscribing to the channel to always know when a new video is up on the channel. Before you go, do not forget to ding dong that notification bell to always know any new activity that is going on with Wrestling Express, and you can check out WrestlingExpress.net for articles and Hall of Fame inductions. And Hall of Fame and the Hall of Fame as well. With all that out of the way, I'll see you next Saturday for another episode of The Transition. New generation to the era of attitude. Till next time.